nation's highways, 600 of those people in this state alone. Approximately 10% of the people will be killed in distraction-related crashes. While data is being collected, currently there is no reliable method to accurately determine exactly how many crashes involve portable devices, because that data is not being collected by all the states. So we don't truly know the full scope of this problem. The NTSB does not investigate every highway crash. Nevertheless, since 2002, we've investigated over 6 highway crashes in which distraction contributed to the outcome. And in the majority of those accidents, they were hands-free conversations that were taking place. Our first recommendation regarding cell phones resulted in an accident in 2002 when a Ford Explorer veered off the left side of the roadway, crossed the median, flipped over a guardrail, and collided with a van, killing 5 occupants. Through our investigation, we determined that an inexperienced driver of the Ford Explorer was using her cell phone at the time of the accident. Based on that investigation, the NTSB recommended that the states prohibit the use of these devices by young people who are just learning to drive. Just like in this legislative body here, there was much debate over how far to take that recommendation. At the time, many people wanted to apply that to everybody. The time wasn't right yet. Given the accelerated frequency of the accidents, the trends and dangerous habits we discovered from the many accidents in 2002 led us in December of 2011 to issue our boldest recommendation yet. We've just had a big crash involving multiple distractions, and we called for a nationwide ban on the use of portable electronic devices while driving. Whereas previous ban recommendations had focused on target populations, such as bus drivers or young drivers, this focused on everyone, and it struck a chord. We ignited a national dialogue and heard from citizens across the country. Many said we had a lot of nerve. There goes big government again, intruding into my car. But others applauded us for taking a strong stand. The NTSB has also seen distractions caused by the use of electronic devices in all modes of transportation, which are detailed in my written testimony. And distraction doesn't just involve the use of personal electronic devices. Recently, we had the Amtrak crash in Philadelphia. We determined that the train engineer was not using a cell phone at the time of the accident. However, our investigation determined that the engineer likely became distracted by a radio conversation regarding a train in close proximity to the train. The radio conversation involved a train that had someone throw a rock at it and it hit the windshield. And because of that event, the train operator on the Amtrak recalled a friend of his who was injured in the same type of accident. And he's thinking about this accident and how his friend was affected by it. And he missed the fact that he lost where he was on the train tracks, accelerated around a curve at over 100 miles, where the curve could only take 60. Distraction comes in all forms. I'd like to take a moment to address a distraction event that affected me personally. While I was at the NTSB making a decision about an accident launch, I got a call from our Response Operations Center that 2 school buses had collided in Missouri. These are school buses that were taking kids on a band trip to Six Flags. You know, Six Flags are all over the place. I've got Six Flags in Maryland that my kids go to when they go on a band trip. And on that day, they were on a band trip to perform and to have some fun. Unfortunately, there was a teenager texting. He was texting on a 10-minute drive. He'd received 11 texts during that time. He didn't see a stopped vehicle. He crashed into it. The first motor coach carrying the students from the band was wondering why a vehicle on the side of the road had stopped. So as she stared at that vehicle, wondering what was up, she ran into the back of the other collision. And then another school bus, who had been following too closely, ran back into that bus. One band member was killed, and the young teenager who was texting was killed. That could have been my children. And every day I think about that accident and about the distraction that it caused. This is something we at the Safety Board hear about all the time. Our chairman made a strong commitment that nobody at the Safety Board uses their phones at all while driving. To use your phone while driving, even your personal phone, to discuss government business can result in you being fired. That is how much we believe that dangerous to use your cell phones while driving. There's no doubt that the adoption of safe driving behavior free of electronic devices will require a cultural shift and will take leaders like you in New Jersey who've already on the leading edge. If change is to happen, it will require a three-pronged approach: good laws, good education, and good enforcement. Distraction is unsafe. It takes the driver's attention away from the driving task. It can occur on our highways, in the skies, on the rails, in the water, and poses a risk whether it's texting, handheld talking, or hands-free, and now checking the internet. Distraction is not about holding a device in your hand or glancing away from the road. It's about mentally straying away from the driving task. Even momentary distraction of driver's attention from the driver's task, such as reading a text message or talking on a wireless phone, can have catastrophic consequences. The NPS believes a significant number of lives can be saved and injuries avoided if New Jersey expands and strengthens its already strong laws to include banning all non-emergency use of portable electronic devices. It's past time to face the fact that distracted driving is a serious safety risk. The question isn't whether or not using your cell phone in the car is a safety risk. Really, the question is, do we value safety over convenience? It's not about distracted driving. It's about the safety of everybody else on the road. Because no text, no call, no update is ever worth a human life. Thank you so much for your consideration, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Lloyd, thank you so much for taking the time to come up to New Jersey. Two thoughts come to mind based on your testimony. You had given praise to New Jersey on being a leader in the legislation we already have in place on cell phone use for graduated driver license users, for school bus drivers, primary enforcement. So some would hear your testimony and say, New Jersey is already a leader in distracted driving. Why do we need to do more?
Well, the reason is we know clearly that distracted driving goes beyond the texting and the handheld. We know that hands-free conversations are distracting. We know from, in my background, which is applied psychology, we learn that some of the best evidence you have is when you look at multiple methods of research and they all converge to the same thing. In the laboratory, in park testing, we find distraction just from conversations involving cell phones. We find it in simulators. Post-crash epidemiological studies find that hands-free or handheld makes no difference. Research using magnetic resonance imaging, scanning the brain while you're simulating a cell phone conversation while driving, shows that the areas that are focused on driving in the brain get less activation because of distraction from that cell phone call. When you look at eye gaze, when you're talking on the cell phone, your conversation affects your gaze pattern, and that limits the amount of information you know what's around you. So while New Jersey's taking a very large chunk of the distraction problem, there's still more work to be done.
Thank you. And then the second question is, to summarize part of your testimony, there are a variety of distractions that are available in motor vehicles. It's not just enough to use hands-free, but there are GPS technologies. There's some people have a variety of entertainment choices in their vehicle. We see cars now advertised as being mobile wireless hotspots. Is the industry going in the wrong direction in terms of distractions, and should that be part of the solution?
The NTSB has made recommendations to Consumer Electronics Association and to the CTIA, basically saying they own some responsibility in developing devices that are safe to use in the car. We've pushed hard for NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, to develop guidelines on how these devices should implement safety features to prevent their use in phones. I mean, I don't think it's enough right now that on my child's phone, as he plays this most popular game right now, Pokemon Go, that they just put up a label, you shouldn't drive while doing this. There should be ways of disactivating that. And that is something the consumer electronics world needs to step up to.
And last question, I'll turn it over to members of the committee. This might be a bit of a rhetorical question. Does it say something that you need to put a warning on Pokemon Go that you shouldn't do it while driving?
Completely. It does. I see warnings all the time where people put a warning on, please do not interact with this while driving. For the lawyers in the room, it might possibly be something that they put on because of liability issues.
I guess it just comes down to a question of common sense.
Exactly. It is common sense. You shouldn't be doing things that take that much attention away. And putting a label on it doesn't mean you solve the problem.
Correct. Thank you. Members of the committee, Senator McGill.
Question of driver distraction. Is there any foreseeable technology